Thanks everybody for hopping on and joining today. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Dana Stenke, Choice Solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Kate, and good morning, good day to everybody. Dana Steinlogge, one of the partners here at Choice Solutions, co-lead up our sales organization. And on behalf of our team, thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your interest in joining us today. Excited to have some of the content and some of the information that we're going to go through and share. And hope it again, as every event we put together, really hope it brings value and for the time that you've taken with us. So again, just a reminder too on the survey at the end, some nice chocolates and coffee that we'll get out that are from I assume a very awesome place here in Kansas City, which is kind of where we're based out of. So here's a quick rundown of the agenda, what we're going to go through. The next time we have together, just a quick intro for some of you that may not be familiar with our team at Choice Solutions. I'll do a recap of some of the 2023 changes at Citrix and license changes, but then we'll get you introduced to Randy and Trent and from our Managed Services leadership team and talk a little bit about some of our Managed Citrix Services offerings, and then we'll kind of go into some insights, tips, and some things like that on some of the tools we use. And maybe we'll have some Q&A at the end, depending on time. So again, we've got folks that are joining us from all over the country, and you guys are in all different types of industries, and honestly, different sizes of environments and sizes of teams that you're a part of. Our organization, our people are predominantly located in the central U.S., and we've got a growing presence in the southeast, and also kind of expanded into the Great Lakes region this past year as well. And have the privilege to earn the opportunity to work with companies across 46 different states here in the last few years or so. So again, it's great to have you all here. I mean, one thing that I think everybody that's joining us today has in common is one, you have applications, right? And applications are the critical part of your business. How do you secure those applications? How do you make sure you're providing the right access to those applications, to those desktops, to those services that your workforce needs to be productive, and make sure that that experience that your workforce has is very high speed. It's very consistent. It's very secure, but it also gives the freedom in today's hybrid kind of businesses or distributed environments where you might have people working from multiple different devices from different locations, all in the same day. And so something that's consistent there, but also too, making sure as a technology professional and a business leader, you get the proper security and control over those applications and that data to protect your business from theft and from other cybersecurity challenges that we're all facing, and how to use those things, how to also use these tools as technology tools to help with the talent attraction and retention, right? So, but behind the scenes, you guys are all focused or all have efforts of some degree of some capacity on transformation. This journey from legacy approaches in the infrastructure and the data center and the applications and infrastructure you might be using, and kind of this journey to the right adoption of what level of cloud services to adopt. Maybe transition to SaaS applications where you can, transitioning to public cloud utilization, or evaluating the right fit for the public cloud versus maybe simplified on-prem private cloud type of options. But the goal being, simplified operations, more of a consumption-based approach to IT, something that can scale and flex with your business. But also too, obviously, with these changes, also brings huge changes in how you secure your workforce and the application. So, we commonly hear that when we meet with new organizations, there's a gap and there's a need for trusted IT partners, and to serve and be kind of aligned with your business. And that's certainly a goal of ours as a company, as a partner, is to kind of check off all these boxes. And I believe strongly that we do, to kind of help and bring a lot of value and subject matter expertise in the areas that we're a good fit to be of service to your business. So that's a little bit, kind of our focus in the areas that we've built kind of to design to bring value to you. But our goal, we want to help you guys adopt simpler, more secure IT environments from the data center on-prem or to the cloud service and all the way down to the endpoint. That's our goal. So simple cloud architectures, secure hybrid, workspaces, and leveraging and incorporating automation anywhere we can in the process. So sorry, transition there. So some areas we help out. We have today we're going to focus a little bit more on our managed services offerings. So getting you guys some exposure to that. But just know that we're a traditional IT partner. So we've got a lot of innovative partnerships. We can do traditional resell as a partner, help you through the acquisition process and new technologies or renewals and different things like that. We've got an awesome professional service team to help with new installs, to help with design engagements. And we have some, especially in Citrix and end user computing, some advisory services that are phenomenal and hugely valuable to help sit down with you and your teams to help kind of lay out that future architecture again as you're migrating, transitioning things to the cloud. And there's all these things that have changed with identity and authentication and where the data sits, where the apps sit, all these things, and helping to sit down with you and help develop that strategic plan for your business. So here's some of the strategic partnerships that we have as an organization. Again, from infrastructure solutions like Nutanix and Microsoft Azure to how you're maybe accessing, delivering those applications to different tools that go into backup, recovery, security, supporting high performance use cases, the user experience, automation. So, and all these things are also incorporated into our managed services offerings and platforms that we work with as well. Specific to Citrix, just for anybody that's new to us, it's been a technology area that we've been helping organizations with for a number of years, and we've got a phenomenal bench and staff that we built out both again on our project and advisory services, as well as kind of today with the managed services. We've got 3 Citrix technology professionals on our staff, 1 CTA on our staff. We've had our team has been heavily involved with a lot of the Citrix user group communities that are out there. There was some recent announcements there on some changes that will be taking place within CUGC. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out as going into 2024 with the new plan that Citrix will have there. But we were, Cloud Partner of the Year with Citrix a couple years ago. And again, just very invested in knowledge and expertise to help you out. But along with that, just want to also kind of share just a little bit some of the capabilities on Microsoft as well. Heavily investing here around Azure, especially around user computing. Azure Virtual Desktops, Windows 365, or Microsoft CSP. So as you're looking at things in the Microsoft realm, as well as a heavy area of focus too for our organization. So let's get into a recap just of some of the things from 2023 with Citrix. I'll continue to kind of run with this. But so 2023 Citrix, about a year ago, the Cloud Software Group was formed. Citrix made that transition into being privately held. And then with that, Cloud Software Group was formed, and now Citrix, NetScaler, ShareFile, XenServer, those are now separate business units as a part of Cloud Software Group. Some key license things that took place in January. The universal subscription was introduced from Citrix, and that is a license subscription entitlement that's really entailed to enable customers to be hybrid cloud ready. So you have one entitlement that gives you the flexibility, the capabilities to run your Citrix environment on-prem, to run your Citrix environment in the cloud, wherever that best destination is for you. But it also gives you flexibility and entitlement too. If you want to take advantage of the Citrix managed DaaS control plane, you can do that. You're entitled to it. Or if you prefer as a customer, just for various reasons, you want to continue to maintain and manage that control plane and the Citrix infrastructure components, you can do that as well, whether it be deployed on-prem or in the cloud for your use case. So that was introduced. ShareFile has been kind of decoupled. I know this is something in advising and working through different with customers that might have had like the traditional bundles. When your renewal came up, it's now an additional separate subscription at the time of the renewal. So just got to be aware of that if you have that as a part of your bundle and if you haven't come up on a renewal yet. But that is going to be a completely separate licensed product and service for the future. And then also too, a smaller one, but NetScaler, it's been moved end of sale on the perpetual. So now it's just a purchase and acquisition of the NetScaler based on subscription-based terms. So a couple things there. Now with that, one of the bigger things that some of you might have felt, I know it's impacted us. Just there's a new go-to-market that Citrix adopted in 2023. So for the commercial enterprise down to the SMB, they've taken a new approach where they significantly reduced their sales and marketing teams. And those teams are now just focused on working kind of through a primary partner, such as Choice Solutions, and they've taken a new approach for commercial enterprise and below. They want the primary, interface, the primary kind of relationship and the value to be kind of through a trusted partner to your organization, versus having like a set account team, things like that. So that has been a big one. That's probably, for some of our customers that are joining us today, you might be just used to working through us. It's not a big change. For some of you that were heavily had a lot of strong relationships with the account teams and ongoing value that they had, that's been a big transition. So Citrix, just in general, what they've stressed to us is kind of a commitment to innovating and getting back to their core. So just the core products, core value in their organization, that you as customers might be benefiting from. They really want to really focus and invest their R&D efforts to be focused on bringing value there versus kind of maybe getting into maybe the Wild West on new things. They really want to just be really good at the core and the things that have been bringing you value over the years. And with that, just anticipate, we've had a chance to have different executive lunches or breakfasts in different markets we work within. But there's a future simplification coming, and kind of a plan, I guess, to simplify their overall product packaging and licensing. That'll continue to kind of be a transition for them. But just this thought there, it's really, really important to make sure that you have and you're aligned with, a very good quality Citrix partner or EUC partner that has the expertise in-house, has the ability to help you. Your organization working through a procurement house or a transaction-oriented organization, you're just not going to get the value that your team needs, especially in this new model with Citrix. So can't say that enough. And I'm not saying it's we're the only game in town, but make sure you're working with a very strong Citrix partner, a EUC partner for your environment. So just a couple things I'm going to walk through, and then there's a purpose here because some of it ties into where we're going with managed Citrix services. But just to recap, so if you're a current customer or a U.S. enterprise, you have over 1,000 total licenses, and any that are perpetual. In March of 2023, there's an end of renewal on perpetual licenses. So you will need to transition your perpetual licenses at that next renewal over to the universal subscription. So if you're over 1,000 or classified as a U.S. enterprise with Citrix, that's going to happen. Now, if you're an existing perpetual licensed customer still, and you might be under 1,000 users, and you might be over 250 named users or over 100 concurrent, you're kind of in a spot where you got some flexibility. If you are on-prem and you're perpetual and you have no desires right now to do anything in the cloud, you can continue to, we can help you out. You can continue to do a perpetual license renewal. However, you also have the option too, if you've got cloud initiatives and you want to be hybrid cloud ready, where you can explore and look at the opportunity to transition over to universal. And in most cases, the financially, it makes sense at that time to go down the universal path, but you still do have that option if you want to just renew the perpetual. So if you're already a DAS customer, so you already have DAS licensing, really there's nothing changed for you at this point. Now here's kind of a scenario, and we're going to start going to managed Citrix services, but for organizations, if you have like perpetual licenses in your environment, and you might be under 250 named users or less than 100 concurrent, support is still continued and available for you on those licenses. So that's not going away. However, if you had a initiative, maybe a cloud type of initiative to move your environment into the cloud and still leverage, Citrix for that, that critical, the value that the Citrix provides you, there's not a path to transition to the universal subscription for you. with the current licensing. And so if that were a desire, cloud related initiative, or you want to move to simplify your environment by going to the DAS control plane, there's a couple options that we would want to visit with you on. One, if you want the Citrix managed control plane, which we refer to as the DAS control plane, there is the Citrix service provider licensing, and I'll touch into that in here in the next slide. If you're someone that you have a cloud initiative in this environment, but you still are good with having the customer managed, so you're fully managing that all the Citrix infrastructure components, there is a license option called Citrix on-prem term licensing that we've introduced to customers. And then this is just the reality. If you're in this space and the size and maybe the value, the benefits, some of the capabilities that Citrix is bringing, maybe there's some other technologies that are out there, and you have a cloud initiative such as Azure. That could be a conversation we could be helping you out with, maybe exploring Azure virtual desktops and a combination of Nerdio. So those are just some options there for clients. Now, the service provider licensing, and kind of getting to a point where we can kind of transition and get you introduced to our managed services team here in just a moment. But this is a license option that exists. Again, that's one use case. If you're a smaller customer on perpetual licenses, you have a cloud initiative. This could be a path that we talk to you about, helping you move to the cloud control plane. We have access to like a multi-tenant, DAS environment, so we can set up multiple different, organizations and customers, and it gives you access then now to the benefits of that Citrix provided and managed control plane to simplify some of the operational things. It's a different model, so we can do things more on like today it's monthly approach, but anticipate that in the future moving more to like a quarterly type of billing arrangement, but it's more based on actual consumption, and also anticipate here in the future that's going to also transition to maybe a little more like an annual commitment, but then we might bill you on the usage in the monthly or quarterly format. One thing that's different about that license option, if we go down that path, the support experience is provided by Choice Solutions. And so if you're a customer that might want to take advantage of this type of license or explore if this is a good fit for you, just know that we would be their front line of support in some capacity. Most customers that go down this path with us, we are fully managing their Citrix environment. But there also is a path if a larger business and you have a smaller departmental use case or environment or something like that we can look at, but we would need to create some level of accounting for support, because you would be contacting our team. We would be that front line of support for you and your team. So some of the pros on this, there's no minimum license starting point. You can scale kind of flexibly, and it's based on consumption today. The cons, this path, there is no concurrency. It's user device only, and also pricing. Just being upfront. If you know you're going to need X amount of licenses over X amount of time, you'd be better off doing some sort of upfront commitment with an annual or multi-year type of commitment, because you'll get better overall pricing there. And again, the support experience, whether that might be a good thing for some of you, or depending on your organization, you're like, hey, it's critical. Like we have to have our first line support has to be Citrix. Not just by nature of the criticality. But if in this model, we are that first line of support, and that is something we have to build into our cost for you as a customer to consume that service. So. But yeah, hey, so that was a little bit of the recap on the Citrix side, a little bit of introduction to us. Now I want to get you introduced to the real meat of today's topics and conversation, and kind of get you introduced to Randy and Trent here in a minute. But again, the nature of this conversation and why is that everybody's got dealing with constraints and challenges. And Citrix teams, great Citrix teams, aren't any different. So you might have you might be a fantastic operator, an administrator, and senior level resource on an organization, but they have desires to, because you're so valuable to the team, maybe to get you into other aspects of the business to be helping out. But you don't have anybody else that can backfill or replace you or kind of fill in that shoe. I mean, that's one use case, or just some organizations we kind of come across with, they're just challenged with being able to retain the skill sets on their team to be able to operate, to best practices and the upkeep and the support for this critical environment to these applications to their business. So that's another use case. So there's a variety of use cases that might generate like why we might kind of get into conversations together to see if we might be a good fit. But I do want to say, it's not for everyone. And so just want to put that out there real quick. And it's not a replacement for quality people, quality teams. It's not typically, if someone's wanting to look at this as a cost saving exercise, it's not as a primary driver, it's not typically a good place to visit either. So it's not a fit for everyone, and it's not, we're the last ones to say, hey, you should outsource. That's not ever something that comes out of our mouths. It's more of how do we fill a gap? How do we help our customers from a strategic perspective, maybe be able to do more things, or maybe it's a challenge that you're faced with in talent attraction, retainment, but there's a level of trust that we've established over the years that we've been partnering together. So that's a little bit kind of a disclaimer there. With that though, I would love to get you introduced to Randy Kern and Trent Giddings from our team to kind of share a little bit more on our offerings and some other insights there. So guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Dana, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Like the slide says, I am Trent Giddings. I am the Cloud and System Infrastructure Manager here at Choice Solutions over our Managed Services team. Really what that means is I'm the person that's sitting behind our tier 2 and tier 3 guys that really hone in on the environments, help true up whatever opportunities there may be, and helps you guys focus on business, your business, not the maintenance, not making sure that the lights are on, making sure that best practices are being followed, but gives you the opportunity to focus in on the things that you really want to do to make your business better.
Yep. And Randy Kern, Director of Cloud Services here at Choice Solutions. I am the guy who generally goes out and helps customers identify what they have, how we can scope services for you from a managed services perspective. Again, be that looking at specifically Citrix managed services or looking at more holistically from an overall managed services strategy for the entire organization. So, and that also entails being involved in sort of a VCI role and some other things like that as well. So I will just take a quick pause here to say that we have seen a couple of Q&A questions come in here. We will get those acknowledged here towards the end. We get the Q&A section. So please bear with us and we'll get to those here in just a minute. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Trent. Thank you.
All right. Let's see if I can, Randy, can you hit the slide over for me? Thank you. With that, I would like to take the time to actually talk a little bit more about Choice's managed services practice overall. You guys might be familiar with our values, the things that we really stand behind, the greatness that we try to deliver, great stewardship, the visions that we want to make sure that we're getting onto the same page that you are, and able to build a successful roadmap quarter by quarter, year by year. What that looks like from a managed services perspective for us is time with our success manager, customer success manager, to actually hear what you have to say, to actually listen to the problems and your end users, to work with our team, to work with our 24/7 NOC, and actually take those issues, get them resolved, problem solve your bad situation that you may be in, and get you to where you need to be. From a Choice Managed Services perspective, what we aim to do is pair you with a team of tier 2 and tier 3 engineers to be your primary engineer, to be the person that is the most familiar with how you want your environment and guide you, help architect that plan for you, working with the team like Randy to make sure that you've got the best layout possible to follow best practices and to get you a stable, reliable, and disaster-proof as you possibly can get environment. From our end, we try to make sure that we are focused in on vendor support, taking care of those IT issues that are just a nuisance to deal with all the time, calling the vendor, dealing with Microsoft, taking care of those issues that are a little more time consuming. Those are the things that we can definitely help with. We take pride in that because that's your environment. Working with our managed services is about stewardship. We want to make sure that we're taking good care of your VMs, your end users, and your desires. We try to make sure that we are disaster proof by backing with a fantastic backup offering, working with great Citrix technology partners that specialize in honing in on improving the end user's experience at the end of the day. I think over the last few years, post-COVID, we've really seen a change in what modern workspace looks like and how much we need something that's going to take care of our end users. Their experience has been put to the forefront beyond anything else. As Dana said, there's times where we have to retain our talent. We always need to keep those people that put their energy into the company and put their knowledge into the teams, and we have to keep them taken care of. That's that end user experience that we try to aim for. That end user experience needs to be quick logins, needs to focus on security first and foremost, needs to make sure that the needs they have are met as soon as possible, and that whatever issues they have are focused on. Well, that's the main gist of our managed services offering. Randy?
Thanks, Trent. So as he kind of indicated, Citrix, we've kind of had a long-standing history here at Choice Solutions. We've been a long-standing Citrix partner, as Dana indicated in the slides earlier. But how do we end up in managed services? Kind of was really through our organic need. We started off doing professional services, doing project work for customer environments, doing deployments and deliveries. And then we would come back 12, 16 months, 18 months later, customer would have a conversation with us and be like, hey, can you come in and update or fix, or Citrix isn't working as well as it used to be? And so that's really kind of what led us to kind of develop the managed services offering, as well as, honestly, like I said, just the IT technology availability of talent in this space, especially since as Trent mentioned, the eruption of COVID has really exploded the demand on that end user computing experience skill set. So really been working to try to enhance and kind of develop this kind of more from an organically. And again, to be perfectly honest, we do some marketing webinaring, but a lot of this has been organic growth from word of mouth because of the experience reputation that we have in the industry. So what does our Citrix Managed Citrix Service offering kind of really look like? And so when we start this, we kind of have, again, since we do not just Citrix Managed Services, but a full managed services offering, when we really scale it back to what is core and critical for Citrix to function and operate, there's a couple of key foundational components that come out, depending on whether you're working in the DaaS environment or if you're in on-prem, right? And so that's really whether you're using that DaaS, again, being that Citrix Cloud Control Plane. If you're in the Citrix Cloud Control Plane, you're going to be looking at items like your cloud connectors, your federated authentication servers, if you're doing multi-factor authentication and integrating with Azure, well, now Entra ID, which was previously Azure Active Directory. You're going to be managing the cloud control plane. So your public cloud URL, that's now going to be your access point versus using the traditional NetScaler gateways in custom DNS and SSL certificates. You're going to have a master image, possibly multiples, and you're going to have your worker images depending the pools that you're delivering. Again, in some cases, we may still be leveraging NetScalers in the environment. Fun fact, since Citrix like to change their names constantly, that's previously known as Citrix ADC, previously was NetScaler, now it's back to NetScaler. Yeah, it's fun. That's just sort of the way naming convention goes with Citrix marketing. We also then obviously have profiles and shares. I did see a question that had come through earlier in regards to specifically FS Logix profiles, and that is very much a part of our managed services strategy today in terms of how we handle that. So in most of our managed services environments today, we are taking advantage of the FS Logix profiles specifically to help handle the OneDrive and the Outlook caching situations specifically, along with some folder redirection, other strategies around that environment. So definitely something that we are using from that perspective. I think the second question there, Stephen, you'd ask, we'll touch on in the Q&A section, which is more around transitioning to a managed services from a Citrix farm. And so we'll touch on that just a little bit of kind of what that onboarding process looks like or how we walk through that here at the end in the Q&A section. For the on-prem environment, obviously this is your more traditional Citrix environment where you've got your delivery controllers, your storefront servers, your director servers. Again, FAS may be in place if you're leveraging some of that Azure AD, MFA, multi-factor authentication in conjunction with the NetScaler environment. Workspace Environment Manager, that's technically available in DAS. It simply runs as part of the cloud control plane. So it's kind of rolled underneath that umbrella, whereas on-prem, it's a separate server and deployment that has to be managed and maintained. Obviously, you have your licensing server. That's one of the big things that kind of goes away when you move to DAS is that the licensing is all contained in that control plane, which also removes the SQL data store requirement. So some nice things about things we've always kind of had to worry about from a resiliency and redundancy for on-prem environments that kind of go away when you move to that DAS control plane, which is why there's been some compelling reasons to kind of move in that direction if and when it's applicable to your environment. Again, we still have our master image or images, worker images, obviously NetScaler, potentially pairs, depending if you're doing, front end, back end, other load balancing you may be doing in the environment that may exceed beyond even Citrix. And then obviously profiles and shares. And so on-prem, it may vary what we're doing there, depending on what the environment has. If we're inheriting an existing environment, if we're deploying a net new environment, and then going to be managing, we're typically going to be leading with FS Logix today. However, I will say that Citrix Profile Management has made some pretty advanced improvements in terms of what those capabilities are there. But from managed service operations, it's all about consistency and having everything look the same across all customer base. So today we're still FS Logix. If and when we make a transition, we would go back and we would move all of our customer base over to Citrix Profile Management at that point in time in an effort working with those individuals. What comes into play as well from a management for just purely Citrix from a managed services perspective would be managing the Citrix policies. So if you're all familiar with Citrix, you know that we've got a lot of policies that relate to how Citrix behaves. Some of that is Citrix policies that can be either in GPO or inside of Citrix Studio, or if you're in the cloud control plane, it's going to be in the DAS control plane itself, where we're going to be managing those policies. So we'll be helping to, migrate and transition those. If you're making a move from on-prem to the cloud, there's tools to help us make that transition and migration we'll assist with. Or if it's, already in Active Directory, we can simply re-leverage those GPOs. If it's in Studio, if it's on-prem, we'll be managing it from that perspective as well. We also then, obviously, because we can't do Citrix and hosted shared desktop or even VDI with actually, doing group policy in the environment to help manage that. So that's where we really get into GPO management as well to help ensure that user experience is what we anticipate or expect, and that the things are happening more on a consistent basis than in those golden images where we really don't want to be making changes to the image itself. We want the image to always kind of reboot in that golden state and come back up. But we want to make sure that we're able to push, outside settings or configurations based on maybe a user state or a specific user case scenario. And then we actually have some other third-party support items that we'll get into some more information on here in just a little bit, but we do some synthetic automated transaction monitoring. So what is that exactly? So essentially what it does is it goes out and it logs into your Citrix environment, and then it does a workflow to whatever we identify as your most critical line of business application. So it'll log into Citrix, even if it's multi-factor or whatever else it needs to be, it'll log in, it'll launch the application, and then it will generate a synthetic transaction in your line of business application and validate the in-state result of that transaction and then log out. And we're doing that on a, depending on what the interval is and what we determine with you guys, an interval to make sure that environment, it's not just that Citrix is up and healthy, but your line of business application, which is really what the value proposition of the entire solution is available and running for your end users at any point in time. And we're proactively notified if something isn't working, so we can get in there ahead of you even getting that first call into our NOC support team to begin trying to determine what's wrong and what we need to do to resolve that. on the back end. Now, if we're just managing Citrix and not the application line of business situation, this would be where our NOC team would be reaching out to your support desk team who's responsible for applications to then open tickets on with your teams to begin asking, why is this application unavailable? Why are we not getting the results that we expected? What can we do to get that resolved? So depending on what level and how far down the stack you want us to be integrated in, if we're responsible and have done more full managed services, then we'll go troubleshoot the application back end. Maybe it's a database instance on the back end that's not available, whatever it might be. We'll dig into that fully, if depending on the scope of where we've been brought in to manage the environment. We also do a lot of end user experience monitoring tools that are third party above and beyond what comes out of the Citrix environment. Obviously, Citrix Studio, and I'm basically Director, has a great set of tools there from a real kind of getting started help desk perspective, but there's some other industry leading tools that we've actually relied on that bring even more granularity and depth, as well as some better historical analysis and trending information. And again, Trent will get a little bit more into those, and we get into kind of the tools, tips, and tricks section here in just a little bit. A big one that we've really run into, and here in the past 18 months, has been security, and in particular, working with our managed services customers regarding the 0 days around Citrix ADCs / NetScaler vulnerabilities in the past, 18 months or so. And so whenever those come out, we're immediately on all the notifications, alert teams. We're working with our CTP team, who has got inside information about what's going on there as well as with our security team to start putting in the business plans, putting in emergency change controls, reaching out to customers and getting those changes scheduled to implement as quickly as humanly possible to make sure that we can minimize that impact and risk to your organization and the environment from those 0-day vulnerabilities. And then obviously we're here a part of that service is a tier 1 support for your end users regarding Citrix workspace issues. So again, we're responsible for Citrix. That includes that client endpoint configuration, maybe the printer's not mapping, whatever it is, right? Now, again, depending on the scope, we can include full tier 1 support for your end users, but generally we're talking about more of a, hey, we're here to help them with they say that, hey, I can't connect to Citrix. Okay, well, let's go validate the workspace version they have. Let's make sure that, hey, I'm not getting a printer, not getting a file map, whatever it might be. We can go find that information for them as well and work through it. So that's kind of the core of what the Citrix Managed Services offering is. And then, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, we have kind of the expanded offerings beyond just Citrix, right? And so in a lot of our environments, and even when we're doing just Citrix Managed Services, we're typically running Citrix if it's on-prem on top of some sort of a hypervisor stack. Well, as we've all learned through the trials and tribulations of moving through, Citrix virtualization with XenApp and or Zen Desktop back in the day, right? That the impact of your SAN storage, your hypervisor performance can directly impact how performant your Citrix environment is. So in a lot of cases, it's usually best practices that we have some sort of monitoring, management, and visibility into the hypervisor stack. In most of our cases and most of our customers now, we're using typically hyper-converged solutions, again, with our partner that we work with pretty heavily, Nutanix, but we can use other solutions as well, and it's not uncommon to have those in the environment. But those allow us to really make sure that, hey, if someone calls in and says, we're having slow Citrix performance, well, is it really Citrix or is it actually something more underpinning? Is it, maybe it's the hypervisor host is, running low on memory resources. Perhaps it's the SAN fabric that is a bottleneck and not getting there, or perhaps it's even on the SAN on the back end on the disk speed that's not able to keep up with the I/O demand of the writes and redirections that are having to happen to support the Citrix environment. So again, that's usually something we do discuss and bring into their environment about potentially monitoring and helping to manage as part of that. Again, we can leave it to your team, but then we have to simply, if we see something, we are going to escalate it back to you guys in that perspective. Again, cloud infrastructure is a big part of this now. So we're doing a lot of that where, we offer a private hosted cloud as well as working with customers who are transitioning into Azure, GCP, and even AWS potentially as well. Obviously, Active Directory. Active Directory is key. A healthy Active Directory in particular is key for a successful Citrix environment. So if we're support and needs for really getting Active Directory, we can bring that under management and support as well. The other one here we've really kind of had to add on most recently has been the private key infrastructure certificate services inside of Active Directory for your environment, specifically more when we're related to using the FAS services, Federated Authentication Services. to tie in multi-factor authentication with Entra ID or Microsoft Azure Active Directory. And then again, as I mentioned, line of business application servers, and then always, the core network infrastructure in the environment, firewalls, switches, and Wi-Fi if necessary as well. So with that, that's kind of a kind of what the offerings kind of look like, how we do Citrix Managed Services, kind of some of the other services we kind of, in some cases lay in with that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Trent to kind of run through some of the additional services.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. Okay, now it's time for us to get into some meat and potatoes. The best parts talks about some best practices, tips and tricks, some insights that I can pour out of my brain into you guys. So from a choice Citrix Managed Services perspective, number one, security. That's our number one priority, period. I'll let the air hang for that, because no matter what we do from an infrastructure perspective, Citrix perspective, network perspective, our end users are tricky. They might be the weak spots, if you will. So making sure that that Citrix environment where we're allowing our end users to do what they need to do to perform their work and perform their duties does not cause us to be vulnerable. So making sure that we stay up on top of our 0-day vulnerabilities, making sure that we stay up on top of the latest Citrix CUs, making sure that, OS management, patch management, working sure that our third-party patches are taken care of. Overall, security, compliance, and reliability are the number one thing that we have to focus on. We have to make sure that we're taking care of our end users, that they're speedy, that everything is working as they need it, when they need it. But our foundation is making sure that that environment is secure, that our Citrix images are patched, are taken care of, our third-party applications are properly patched and managed on a consistent basis. And if we find something that isn't right, we're quick to address it. Randy alluded to this earlier, where Citrix NetScaler had a bunch of vulnerabilities come out over the last 18 to 24 months. Those vulnerabilities have made huge impacts in the industry, in every single vertical. No matter what it is, when a 9.9 vulnerability comes out, you have to drop everything and take care of it. Bad actors move quickly. As soon as a vulnerability comes out, next week, we will hear that there are businesses impacted and something has gone wrong. From a Citrix Managed perspective, that's the main priority. We will take everything that is on our calendars, all of the plans, the agendas, postpone them. That's not important. Make sure our customers are secure. Make sure that ADC vulnerability is patched and the customer is aware of it and can feel a little bit of security when they hear about the other businesses in their industries being impacted. And they can say, I know it's not me. I've worked with my team, my customer success manager. I've worked with my, subject matter experts to verify that the holes that are always going to be, there will always be something that needs to be taken care of, that it is taken care of, that I can confirm and sleep at night knowing I'm a little bit more secure. I think no matter what we do, when we are looking at best practice, security and backups or disaster recovery are going to be our number one priority. So planning for those is always on the roadmap. If it's not on your roadmap this quarter, we'll make sure that it's on the roadmap next quarter. If not next quarter, next year. Whenever it fits for you and the time is right, let's move forward and make sure that our environments are secure and reliable and redundant as possible. Anything can happen, from a power outage to take out your, environment, or a natural disaster. making sure that your Citrix environment is HA and redundant, and that your end users, no matter what condition the world may be in, your end users can still do business and their lives can carry on and your business can carry on. First and foremost, that's the number one priority. After that, I think best practice is going to be around how do we handle the NetScalers at large. We want to make sure that nothing is missed. I think we all know that sometimes there's an IP out there that we're not even familiar with. It's been there forever. It's a machine that somebody knew about, and it might be undocumented somewhere. Well, that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility to make sure that what we know is documented, the things that the machines that we're contracted to manage, that we are managing, monitoring, that we are confirming every time something needs to be done from a workload perspective. We're scanning our environments for new machines being added. We're making sure that the ADCs are updated and firmware being patched in mass through the through the NetScaler ADM. That's the application delivery manager. That's going to be able to take care of all of your NetScalers, making sure that your SSL certs are not going to randomly expire on you. That's making sure that your load balancers are up and functional. It's making sure that your environment's routed the way it needs to be routed and everything is performing as expected. So that management piece from the Citrix ADM flows back into our ticketing system to make sure that our 24/7 NOC is addressing them first, making sure that anything that's a little bit more challenging or needs an extra set of eyes gets addressed quickly. That's the priority. Making sure that as you scale, we can scale. And the best way for us to scale is through automation and wonderful tools, great enterprise leading tools. One of the tools that we use, and I stand behind heavily, is a tool called ControlUp. Between the technology that it brings forward to getting a little more insight in your end user's environment and your end user's experience, has been incredible and a great tool from a troubleshooting standpoint, where we've all had issues that have left us scratching our head a bit. And most times those issues that are making us scratch our head are ones that have people breathing down the back of our necks for. So a tool like ControlUp that allows you to see things quickly, get real-time, in-the-moment information, as well as historical data to see the trends and everything and be able to pinpoint those abnormalities, to tune in, to be able to figure out what's really going on for my end users or for my environment as a whole. It's been fantastic. There's no other tool that I feel comfortable with deploying out to my tier 2, tier 3, to my NOC for us as a managed services practice to deploy and truly bring in all of our end users and all of our Citrix managed environments, from on-prem, traditional on-prem, to full cloud, to hybrid cloud. Wherever those end user environments are, ControlUp has met us exactly where we need it to be. They allow for a great community of scripts that are easily run, automatable. You can easily spin up things quickly as well. It's not one of those tools that are stuck behind a really hard wall. This is something that's made for us to better our customers with. Another tool, and as Randy alluded to, is Automai. That's going to be that synthetic transaction, right? That's going to be that robotic process that allows you to have a workflow or process validated on a regular schedule and have proof of it and show when it fails. I think a lot of times we run into situations where we not just automate it, but automate it and forget it. Running into those situations where we have to forget it leaves us eating a little bit of dirt when you don't have something that has proof. Automai gives us that proof in reports, gives us that proof in immediate tickets and screenshots of any problems that it sees that fall outside of its expected trends. And I'll get a little more into some of those specifics here in a second. So what we see here is going to be that Citrix ADM, that NetScaler ADM, if you will. It's going to be able to give us that centralized management that I talked about. It's going to be able to give us advanced analytics, those details into what's going on into our NetScalers individually. Find out about the SSL certs that are out there, find out about all of the information that NetScaler can possibly provide. One of those pieces that the ADM is going to do is that automation orchestration of updates. So new vulnerability comes out, here goes the new update that we need to roll out en masse, and we'll deploy it out and take care of it. Doesn't have to be as time consuming, it needs to be quickly executed. And you see here, that security and that compliance piece as well has been incredibly pivotal as all of our industries require more compliance every day, from PCI to HIPAA to all the other adjectives and nomenclatures that you can possibly make up. This is going to help us see what's going on from a vulnerability perspective and a compliance perspective, making sure that we're not falling short on our TLS vulnerabilities and our environment's as secure as we need it to be. And going into an example for ControlUp, like I said, this is going to give us that real-time and historical perspective of the environment. We'll be able to look in, see what's going on from a customer's environment, look at each individual user's login times, experience with that, main business application, how much lag they're having, what that workspace on their endpoint is connecting through. It's going to be able to give us from end user's workstation all the way back to the hypervisor, all the way up to the cloud, wherever it may be. It's going to track that experience all the way through, and pivotal. It's really helping lead the entire EUC stack. Some of that is going to come in with the automation pieces as well. So with the automation, like I mentioned, the great community of scripts behind it, and the capabilities to script everything on your own, running into problems one time, meaning you don't have to run into it a second time. They become a major issue. You got a guy that's got a script, we figured it out. Well, let's make sure we don't have to run it again. Put those things in place to prevent it. Nothing worse than running into the same issue more than once. I think the historical piece has been incredibly pivotal as well. The ControlUp Insights factor allows you to see, weeks, months, years in advance, or years previous, to analyze what the resources are on your hypervisor, what your slowest users are, how your experience with your applications, your overall host. It gives you all of that analytical data right at your fingertips. So you don't have to go dig into a whole bunch of other places to figure out who's my biggest impacted user, who's taking the longest time, who's having the worst experience. Just find it and help them. Get them to where they need to be. Like I said, it'll pull up all the things that you push into it. It'll give you historical data, and it'll also even give you some environment recommendations. It'll give you insight into what's taking the most resources, and if you really need to have that be the thing that's consuming the most. And to switch gears a little bit, this is going to be the Automai piece. This is going to be that synthetic transaction. So as you see, we've got our Citrix Managed Services customers lined up with their own individual robot. That bot is going to go out and execute that workflow, that process, to make sure that login times are underneath this threshold, making sure that that line of business is accessible and the expected logins are happening. You don't want to be in a situation where it's 2 o'clock in the morning and all of a sudden your environment's down. No one's going to know until 6. With Automai, with that schedule, you'll have those alerts, you'll have that information. It's somebody checking in and making sure that your business is running. And it's all here, views, easy views for each, from an engineering standpoint, to make sure that everything's working as it should. And if it doesn't, the best thing about it is it's going to tell you, it's going to take a screenshot of that failure, what's wrong, and where the anomaly is. We walk through these processes, making sure that each step is accounted for, and it's anything outside of perfect is wrong, needs to be looked at. So that's really one of the main pieces that we're going to aspire for, is to using that as our nth layer. From both a Citrix management perspective, making sure that your end users can get to Citrix, but also for whatever workflows are specific for you as well. It's a intelligent robot that can be tuned and taught just about anything with time. You give it a good workflow, we'll be able to make sure that we're managing it and monitoring it as expected. And with that, I give a little bit of time for some Q&A.
So Dana, we had a question in here, and I'll let you kind of maybe field this one, but is it possible to get a copy of the meeting slide deck? Is that going to be sent out as part of the follow-up items?
We hadn't planned to, but we definitely will have this recorded, and then we'll put it on YouTube. So it's something where if there's anything that we gotta, if you're not already, Choice Solutions, we have a YouTube channel. Follow it. Any events we do, we'll post the recordings of it out there, so you can go back, and if there's particular segments or anything like that that might be valuable to somebody that wasn't able to join, or just to kind of go back through for yourself, that's available and accessible. So I imagine that'll be the case here for this as well. So in the survey, if there's a particular piece of the content that might be of helpful, then just let us know too.
Perfect. Any other questions? And then I just want to note that Stephen Koenig, I believe I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I do apologize. I did reply back to both the FS Logic question you had we answered live, as well as the managed services to Citrix Farm. Since I'm not 100% sure what you mean as far as transitioning to managed services for a Citrix Farm, typically what we would do when we get, find out that you're looking to maybe move to managed services would be we do an initial kind of conversation discussion, right? Typically with your account manager, and usually I get engaged at that point in time. We'll have a high level conversation regarding what does your environment look like today? What is the versions of Citrix you might be running? What are you trying to bring into scope? Because again, obviously the number of systems in the scope obviously impacts dollars, right? We'll work to then get some high level budgetary numbers based on that initial conversation. And then from there, we can further refine it by doing some data gathering analysis tools in the environment to actually pull out better data to then refine. Once we kind of think we're in the ballpark of what it's going to cost from an managed service perspective, we'll refine that into a much better plan, as well as evaluating what your licenses are today, how we may want to transition licenses to better optimize your cost spend. Look at if you're trying to make a transition from on-prem or into cloud, we'll look at what does that need to look like as well. Is it a rebuild? Is it a build and then migrate configuration? So we'll handle all of those items as part of that conversation, but it would start with reaching out to your choice account manager to get that initiation and that process started, and then we'll help you walk through that all the way through the journey.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Randy. Yeah, and so Randy, Trent, thank you both very much. Both are phenomenal leaders as a part of our team. Randy gets involved a lot of times if we were exploring if this is a good fit, kind of on the front end of things, looking to understanding the environment, helping develop the plan and the details and the architecture. And then Trent leads up a team, an awesome team that's continuing to grow with a lot of experience in large Citrix environments, and just a great leader, and very relentless and caring for the customers that we're responsible for being a partner and helping out with. So thank you both very much for joining us. Yeah, so any questions? Again, there's a survey. Please fill it out. It helps us to kind of grade ourselves on the content. worthwhileness to things you're thinking about or challenges you're facing. And if you ever have any ideas on things that would be, hey, this would be valuable to learn more about as well, let us know. Well, in our next event, this kind of concludes our 2023 events. So we will have something coming in later part of January. I think it'll be focused with Nutanix, if that might be applicable for you. Our team will be in touch. We didn't get a photo of family picture taken for Christmas, so this is from April. We'll have to do, but this is our team. We all had a chance to get everybody together back in April, and just we're very grateful for the opportunity to be a partner to the customers on here that we work with. Thank you very much for your trust in our team. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas. Wishing you all joy, peace, good health, and a great holiday season. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good one.